Can the Houston Astros turn it around? The team who's dominated the American League for the last 7 years is currently one of its worst teams. So we decide if it's too late for the Astros to come back or not. Then we get into what's going right and what's going wrong with the Houston Astros, talking about specific players. Finally, we give our biggest surprises from the MLB as a whole, both good and bad, and you are not going to want to miss any of it. And it's coming up next on the Bush League Bros. Roll the open.
Now, certainly plenty of fanfare between these two brothers.
Just complete Bush League.
The little brother just trying to annoy big brother.
If you look at it on the surface, it's Bush League.
Something about that sticks in my craw.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Bush League Bros, partner of the House Call Sports. I'm here with Taylor. My name is Matt, and today we are talking all things Houston Astros and their horrendous start. If the team who's made 7 straight ALCS appearances is officially done, even though we're only 26 games into the season as we record, or if they can still pull out some of that championship magic of years past and make another run. But first, you need to subscribe to the channel, okay? We'll be covering and impacting the MLB season with what we do here at Bush League Bros. And if you don't believe we'll be impacting the season, go back and watch Aaron Boone's ejection the other day when the fan got him kicked out. Zoom in on the fan. That's right. It was our very own Taylor. So if you want a baseball podcast who's going to cover all of the action and get managers ejected 2 batters into the game, subscribe. Now, let's get into this Houston Astros discussion because they have been the American League's best team for the last 7 years, making 7 straight ALCS appearances, as I mentioned, always finding a way to be there even when it hasn't looked like there will be a way to be there. However, they have started this season 12 games under 500 at 7-19, a start that hasn't been seen, and we haven't seen anyone come back from it, essentially, and make the playoffs. And even though they have had some injuries and some overall bad luck, this team appears to be in a very, very troublesome spot going forward. So, Taylor, I got to kick it to you, man. Is it over for the Houston Astros? Is it too late for them to turn it around?
Well, Matt, I was eating lunch in my car today, got some Panda Express drive-thru, was eating it in the parking lot of a convention center nearby, got to the fortune cookie, and, you're not going to be able to read it, but here it is, and it says, "Your grace will touch a stranger today." And I was like, Panda Express, okay. What the hell does that mean? And then right before we got on, I was like, I know exactly what that means. What I'm going to say today, and the grace that I speak with about the Astros is going to touch a stranger's heart, because I know we disagree a lot about this Astros team, and I'm definitely not feeling good about the start that they've had at all.
Can't be.
But I'm still not in full panic mode yet because it's still early and they still have a ton of guys coming back from injury, but they do need to turn this around right now if they want to dig themselves out of this hole. And the best reassurance I can give to Astros fans, the best grace I can provide to a stranger right now, is that their main divisional rivals in the Mariners and the Rangers are also off to lackluster starts, and the projections still like the Astros. Pacoda has them finishing with around 88 wins, playoff odds still at 75%. I feel like that's a little bit high. Fangraphs does as well. They only have them projected for 82 wins with 42% playoff odds. And in the Astros' defense, they've also had a relatively tough schedule to start the year. They went Yankees, Blue Jays, Rangers, Royals, Rangers again, Braves, Nationals, Cubs. And even with a tough schedule, this team should be better than, 7-19 now. The negative 36 run differential is unacceptable, but I do have a few other reasons why it's not time to panic just yet, because the offense has been good. They just haven't been good at the right time. The Astros are dead last in Fangraph's clutch stat, which measures the difference between the performance in high leverage compared to neutral situations. So I looked at their low, medium, and high leverage splits. Low leverage, they have 130 WRC plus, which is the best in MLB. Medium leverage, though, goes down to 90 WRC plus. High leverage, 97. Kind of splits the difference, but still not up to their standards. Runners in scoring position, their splits are also not great. They're hitting 248, but only a 91 WRC plus and only a 94 isolated power. So they're not hitting for power with runners on base, even though overall the production has been good. They're just not getting the hits at the right time. But given this team's track record in the playoffs, those numbers just aren't going to stick. Like, this team is going to get better offensively in high leverage. But obviously the offense is not the problem here. It's the pitching. But are these poor pitching results? Are they a matter of bad luck? or bad pitching? And the answer is a lot more of a mixed bag than I thought it was. Despite having the fourth worst WOBA in the league at 338, the overall pitching by certain metrics has actually been pretty good. They're top 5 in barrel rate, top 5 hard hit rate, top 10 exit velocity. So they're limiting hard contact, but this is the kicker. They have the second worst expected FIP in the league at 449, and that FIP number is absolutely a result of bad pitching. And the numbers that kind of bake into that are they have the third worst walk rate at 10.9%, the fifth lowest strikeout rate at 20.5%. That's just bad pitching. So then you're piling on some of this bad luck on top of bad pitching. You end up with this nightmare situation that they end up in now fourth worst pitching BABIP at 313, which I think is more bad luck than anything, considering that they're actually not allowing that much hard contact. Fourth worst left on base percentage at 66.7%, also bad luck. A lot of big discrepancies between ERA and expected ERA with their big arms, like Josh Hader, 8.38 ERA, 3.28 expected. Ryan Presley, 7.45 ERA, 3.99 expected. Hunter Brown, not a good ERA, 9.68, but a 6.13 expected, which still isn't good, but that's still a 3-run difference. And even Spencer Arrighetti, he has the same expected WOBA as Framber Valdez at 332, but Framber has a 2.19 ERA compared to Arrighetti's 10.97 ERA. So there is a lot of bad luck baked into their pitching numbers, and I'm not saying the pitching has been good, but I don't think it's been as bad as some of these surface numbers indicate. So there's 136 games remaining. If the Astros win at a 575 clip the rest of the way, they'll end up with 85 wins, which I think will at least have them in the mix for the playoffs. And then around a week from now, they should be back to running their rotation of Verlander, Framber, Javier, and Blanco. And even just scanning their schedule very quickly from mid-May through the All-Star break, it's obvious that their schedule is going to be a lot easier going forward than it has been up to this point. So by mid-May, barring more injuries, the pitching situation should be exponentially better, combined with an offense that's already in midseason form. Jose Abreu is hopefully going to see a lot of the bench for the rest of the year. Like he's got to
DFA,
stay out of the lineup. DFA, and it seems like it's already trending in that direction because he has not been starting even versus lefties lately. This staff and bullpen is also due for significant positive regression, especially in high leverage. And so I don't think it's too late for this team, but winning at a 575 clip over 136 games is not easy. But I tend to err on the side of hope and grace and optimism just because of this team's track record. But again, it's not going to be easy. And if they go into Colorado and lose 2 games, I think I am out, though. I think that's where I draw the line.
Yeah, Taylor, listen, that was cute. I'm proud of the effort that you attempted. I'm proud of the grace that you tried to show for the Houston Astros. I'm going to show absolutely no grace. I'm going to show absolutely no positivity. I'm going to debunk 90% of what you just said with my arguments. Okay.
Debunk.
Taylor, listen, okay. You want to know something, Taylor? People have been tiptoeing around this so much. A lot of people have said like, oh, they're in trouble. They're concerned about the Astros, but not many have really said they're cooked. It's over. They are not coming back from this. Okay. Well, Taylor, I'm here to say they're cooked. It's over. And they are not coming back from this. First of all, let me just say the daily satisfaction I have gotten from checking the scores from around the league to see the Astros have once again lost has been incredible. I immediately get a big smile on my face every single time I see them lose. It's awesome. But, Taylor, I'm going to attack this as an objective analyst today, or as a mostly objective analyst. I don't think I'll ever be 100% objective when it comes to the Astros, but mostly objective analyst. First of all, I will be a casual here. Let's check the standings, shall we? I'm going to list all the teams that are worse than the Houston Astros, okay? The Miami Marlins, who are 1 game worse and have a much worse roster with just as many injuries. The Chicago White Sox, who might be the worst team we've ever seen and are currently on a 19-win pace. That's it. That's the entire list. The Houston Astros have the same 7-19 record, Taylor, as your Colorado Rockies. They are just as bad as that Rockies team, Taylor. Listen, are we talking about the Rockies turning it around and making the playoffs? Absolutely not. Are we talking about the Marlins turning around and making the playoffs? Are we talking about the White Sox turning around and make the playoffs? We're talking about the A's turning around and making the playoffs, who have a better record by 3 games right now, and we're set at 56.5 wins preseason. Taylor, as a wise man once said, playoffs? Playoffs? I'm just hoping we can win a game. That's how the Astros should be thinking right now, okay? And listen, the Astros started bad last year too, okay? But bad for them last year was 5-7 through 12 games and 14-12 through 26 games last year. And it's not like they ended up getting 100 wins after that. They finished with 90 wins, okay? They made the playoffs by 2 games and won the division on a tiebreaker. They are 7 games worse than their bad start last year. They are 12 games under 500. This is completely different. Obviously, we know they've struggled in large part due to their injuries, but I think their injuries are due to the fact that they've had 7 straight deep playoff runs in the postseason. They made 7 straight playoff runs. You're playing an extra month of baseball every single year. And it's not like extra spring training, low intensity, low stakes baseball. These are extra highest level games. They're the highest level games you can possibly play and that this sport provides. Okay. Second of all, I talked about this in our first episode on our new channel, Taylor. Dusty Baker and even Martin Maldonado. Losses that might hurt more than many anticipated, okay? Again, you throw in a new manager in there in Joe Espada, first time ever managing a ball club, and he gets swept at home right away and now has the team at 7-19. I don't think he's the main issue with the team, but Dusty's leadership and just his steadiness in the clubhouse may have been overlooked compared to a rookie manager's, okay? And then, listen, we all know Maldonado can't hit. Maldonado's one of the worst hitters we've ever seen, okay? And Yainer Diaz obviously rakes. But defensively, not only just as far as his catching stats, Diaz this year, he's 34th in caught stealing above average, 32nd in framing, and 23rd in blocking amongst catchers. So he's not great as far as the analytics go defensively. But now he's got to manage the pitching staff, which Maldonado was so good at. Everyone in the Astros organization talked about how good Maldonado was at that. And again, their staff has the 3rd worst ERA in baseball. I'm not attributing all of that to Yainer Diaz, but again, it could be a factor in why they've struggled pitching so much. Another reason they're struggling, Hader being the closer screwed up the bullpen dynamic. I tried to give y'all the codes on this one in the preseason. Presley was not happy getting moved from the 9th.
Or Abreu.
One of the best, or Abreu. From Presley, especially being one of the best playoff performers ever, really, from a bullpen perspective. Hader was awesome last year, and he was due for some regression, okay? Like I said, when y'all were asking, am my top 5 closers short? Oh, where's Josh Hader? Where's Josh Hader? Shut up. That's where. He wasn't on the list. He's not in the top 5 closers. Again, I think he'll be solid this year, but the way the bullpen has started, and now the way the team has started, how y'all think that clubhouse is right now? Paying Hader $19 million a year, Jose Abreu getting $19.5 million a year to be the worst player in baseball. How do you think the guys who have won championships for Houston, who don't have long-term contracts, are feeling about Hader and Abreu's performance right now? Bregman, Tucker, and Fromber all got to be looking at them like, really? This is what y'all paid for? A start like this can really fracture a clubhouse. Finally, the main reason this team is so bad so far, this team does nothing well. It has the 3rd worst ERA for a team in baseball. Defensively, they have a -2 outs above average as a team, 18th in baseball. Offensively, they've scored the 20th most runs in baseball. So literally, they do nothing above average. And again, this is not a small sample size. This is 1 game away from being 1/6 of the way through the season of being absolutely terrible, Taylor. Imagine this, Taylor, and this is where my mind goes because I have the mind of a fat 11-year-old kid, but hear me out, okay? Imagine you get a pizza, right? You order it from a nice restaurant, always provides good pies. It's expensive, okay? The Astros always put out a good product on the field and have the 3rd highest payroll in baseball, okay? You get the pizza this time after the restaurant has hyped it up to be just as good, if not better than it was before. And you eat the first slice and a half, and it's maybe the worst pizza you've ever had in your entire life. Taylor, since it's you, it's overflowing with nasty, greasy cheese. The crust is stale. The toppings are old. Everything is awful, okay? It's worse than Little Caesars, and at least Little Caesars, you get to pay $5 for that. This one was expensive, okay? But even if somehow the rest of the 6.5 other slices of the pie end up solid, you cannot recover from the 1.5 slices that were literally the worst you've ever had in your entire life. And that's what the Houston Astros are so far. The Houston Astros are so far this season. The worst 1.5 slices of pizza in the league. They are cooked. The pizza is burnt. It is over for the Houston Astros, Taylor.
Wow. Okay, well, I have a lot of thoughts on what you just said. You brought up a great point about the playoff runs and how that's factoring into the fatigue and maybe some of these arm injuries, and I think you're dead on that. Like, that's not something I had really considered, but this is a storm that possibly the Astros would be weathering better if Dusty Baker was still around. And that's 100%. not shots fired at Joe Espada because he just doesn't really have the experience as a manager. I know he's been in that clubhouse, but it's a lot different when you're at the helm of the ship. He was already put into an awkward situation with the bullpen, with Josh Hader coming into the mix. And you're absolutely right. Like, that's something we've been harking on, is like, you can't necessarily just making a team better isn't necessarily just piling good players on top of good players already. Mm-hmm. Like, you've now displaced Ryan Presley, who probably thought he was going to retire as one of the most prolific Astros relievers of all time. Like, he was probably thinking like, man, I'm going to be right up there with like Billy Wagner. And, doesn't look like that's going to happen anymore. And also, Hader's making more money than him. And then as a result, that presses Abreu down to that third arm in the bullpen, where he probably thought he was going to be next in line to inherit that closer role after Presley retires in a few years. And that has financial implications for Brian Abreu. The one point I do want to push back on, Matt, is you compared the Astros turning it around to the Marlins and the Rockies. They're not even capable of winning out the rest of their games at a 500 clip, whereas the Astros are. And I do genuinely think that they are capable of winning at a 575 clip over the remaining 136 games. I mean, you take out the worst month of their season last year was actually September, and their winning percentage was 575.
I don't know that I'm counting on them to get to a 575 winning percentage throughout the rest of the season.
I'm not counting on it. I'm saying it is possible. Being optimistic. I'm trying to have some grace here, man.
I don't even think it's possible. Even if they get to 85 wins, again, that's not guaranteeing them anything. The last wildcard team won, I think it was 89 games. Was it the Blue Jays? Yeah, it was the Blue Jays. The Astros are going to have a hard time. They're going to have a really hard time getting to the upper 80s of wins, starting as a 7-19 team. Continuing with this Astros theme, we wanted to deep dive a couple of players from this team, one who's playing well and one who could not be playing much worse. So, Taylor, talk to me about a guy on the Astros who's playing really well right now.
Well, since I'm obviously the voice of optimism and grace in this Astros conversation right now, I'm gonna pick a guy that I've actually been pretty impressed with at the plate, and that's Jeremy Peña. What we've seen from him so far is a shift towards a more contact-oriented line drive approach, and it's working really well for him so far. He has a 324 batting average, 326 expected, which is 11th in the league. He's walking a lot less, but he's also whiffing and striking out a lot less, and the plate discipline numbers show that he's just making a lot more contact all the way around. And he's made some mechanical adjustments to his swing, which have resulted in consistent hard contact, more line drives, less ground balls. His ground ball rate in 2024 is down over 12% from last season. His launch angle is currently sitting at 11.2 degrees, which is over double his 5.5 degree average launch angle in 2023. And Peña, actually, he talked a little bit about the swing changes in spring training, and this is from an article in The Athletic. Peña says, "I'm starting the bat from a still position on my shoulder. I'm still doing some kind of movement with my hands as I get going, but I'm not completely getting rid of the wag. I'm just controlling it a little bit better." And we've seen the results of that so far already. And it's also obvious that he has a much better idea of how pitchers are going to attack him now, which is evidenced because of the changes in his splits we've seen from last year to this year. In 2023, he had an 83 WRC plus versus righties and a 132 WRC plus versus lefties. But so far this year, he has a 134 WRC plus versus righties while still having a 118 WRC plus versus lefties. And what were righties throwing him more than any other pitch in 2023? Sliders. And what pitch is Peña hitting better than any other pitch this year? Sliders. He has a 549 expected WOBA versus sliders this year, which is nearly double what he had in 2023. And he's been hitting sixth in this lineup. And I think that's a great spot for him with this new approach, because you've got Alvarez, Tucker, Yainer Diaz hitting before him, creating traffic, those guys getting into scoring position, and then Peña being able to consistently get hard contact, hit line drives. That's a really good equation to score runs. So I really like what I've seen from Peña so far. But the spirit of optimism right now, enough is going wrong for this team. Enough people like you are talking about how it's all over and it's all wrong. So I want to highlight something nice before you get into the worst player in Major League Baseball.
Yes, I'm definitely about to get into the worst player. But like you said with Peña, Taylor, he's eliminated. He had that, like you mentioned, he was talking about that really big waggle in his swing. It kind of caused him to pop up from what I noticed too. Like he would get up out of his legs and it would screw up the whole sequence of his swing. So and then for him too, like that waggle also kind of caused him to wrap the bat around his head. So he would wrap it around his head. And when guys wrap the bat around their head, it causes them to be really late into the zone and causes them to disconnect a little bit. So he was getting jammed on the inner half. And like you mentioned, he couldn't really get to those sliders on the outer half. So really good adjustments from Peña in the offseason this year. But I'm going to talk about a guy who has made zero adjustments in the offseason. Jose Abreu is the worst player in baseball right now. That might sound crazy from a guy who's, still getting MVP votes a couple of years ago, and also might sound like an overreaction, but I promise you it's not. I'm going to give you the numbers real quick before I get into his swing, okay? So far in the 2024 season, Jose Abreu's average, 0.65. Jose Abreu's on base, 132. Jose Abreu's slugging, 0.81. His F-WAR, negative 1.2. B-WAR, negative 1.5. All of those are the worst in the MLB. And his barrel percentage is 0.0. He literally has not barreled a ball this year in 20 games and in 62 at-bats. Long story short, he's been awful at literally everything. First of all, he's just a naturally slow starter for his career. He's got a 727 OPS in March and April. Each of his last 4 seasons as well, he's been under a 700 OPS for April. And every other month in his career, he's above 800. So it takes him a while to find his rhythm like it does a lot of other big league hitters. But this year, something is obviously much, much different. He's literally unplayable right now. Part of my theory is he's a very handsy hitter. You watch his swing, especially when he's in his stance, he's very loose. He's very fluid with his hands. A lot like Altuve. You watch Altuve in his stance, he's very, very handsy. He's a very, very fluid, handsy hitter. Altuve, especially, he's always waggling that bat around. And then even when, going back to Abreu, even when he loads, he kind of drops his hands down to his armpit, which a lot of great hitters have done before kind of loading back up into his launch position. He's still doing that. However, first of all, okay, I talked about this with Taylor a little bit pre-show. He's 37 years old, okay? He's probably not as quick as he used to be, and he's probably getting slower every pitch that he sees, okay? He isn't used to having his hands be this slow, and that comes with a huge adjustment, especially with someone like Abreu who's very, very handsy, okay? But that's not entirely for the issue for Abreu. A lot of the issue for Abreu is that still does lie in his hands, but a lot of it is caused by Abreu putting too much weight on his front side. I got to give Mark DeRosa a lot of credit on this because he did a really awesome breakdown of Abreu last year. It was Abreu's good hitting footage with the White Sox. He sat in his backside a lot better. There was a lot more weight in his backside, allowing him to stay a lot more behind the ball and sequence his swing a lot more properly while he was keeping his hands inside the ball much, much better. Now with Abreu, with the Astros, ever since basically the start of 2023, he's gotten a lot more weight on his front side. And when we get weight on our front side as hitters, we have a tendency to disconnect and get our hands away from our body. So he's losing a ton of strength, which is why you see Abreu's power numbers have gone way down. Basically, when you disconnect away from your body, you're losing. Like if you were going to arm wrestle someone, Taylor, and you tried to arm wrestle them out here, right? And you tried to move their arm way out here, it wouldn't work, right? But you move your hand in here, you can immediately move their arm, right? Because there's a lot more power with your hands being more connected to your body. So that's essentially why Abreu's losing a lot of his power, because he's getting on a lot of his front side and his hands are disconnecting away from his body, leading to a very, very long swing. And that's been Abreu's main issue. The great MVP caliber, almost guaranteed 30 homer, 100 RBI Jose Abreu had an extremely short and compact swing. His hands stayed connected and so short and compact to the ball. His path was so direct to the ball. He didn't waste any movement. He stayed on path for a really long time too. He basically got into the hitting zone really quick. He stayed through the hitting zone for a really, really long time. Now his hands getting away from his body takes him a lot longer to even get to the ball. And when he does, he's way less powerful. So now he's late and weak at the plate. And those are recipes to get absolutely cooked by everything that gets thrown your way. And finally, the reason why he's so bad, again, this is just my opinion watching him from afar, he looks like he has no confidence anymore. You just watch him. He doesn't look like he believes he can get it done anymore. He doesn't look like he believes he can get a hit anymore. He doesn't look like he even wants to be out there anymore. And once you lose your confidence as an athlete, especially as a hitter in a sport that's completely fail-based like baseball is, you're dealing with failure 7 times out of 10 and you're a good hitter, you lose that mental edge, which, by the way, if anybody who doesn't know this, I think anybody who knows baseball should know this at this point. The mental side of baseball is way more important than the physical side of baseball. He obviously has physical changes that needs to be made, but the mentality has to be there. And I think his mentality is the main reason why he's struggling right now. He does not look confident at all. And I think those are some of the reasons why Jose Abreu is struggling so bad and why, like I mentioned before, he might be a DFA candidate at some point in the near future, Taylor.
I think you're right. I mean, he's unplayable right now, and it's sad to see. Like, he was such a consistent force, and he was so fun to watch. And I've got quite a bit of egg on my face because he was one of when we did an episode when he signed with the Astros of our best and worst signings, and I decided he was one of the best signings of the offseason. And in that episode, I think I said, like, this is a bit of an overpay, but the way he slots into this lineup is perfect for what they need. Yep. And he's just outside of maybe like a month last year, like towards the end of the year,
some of the playoffs too.
Yeah, a little bit of the playoffs, like he just hasn't really provided anything for them. No. And it's a bummer to see that. And it seems like they are at this point moving on. John Singleton's been playing a lot of first. I mean, I'm kind of hoping they bring up Joey Loperfido, who can play some first base. Like, I would rather see him in there at this point. Mauricio Dubon filled in a few games at first last year. I would rather see him playing every day. As well. They just in this dream scenario where my Astros are going to win at a 575 clip over the next 136 games. Abreu is not in that equation. Like,
he can't be in there.
He can't be, and it's sad, but it's just might be the end for him.
Yeah, it could definitely easily be the end for him. And Taylor, this situation surprisingly is a lot worse, but it feels a lot like the Donaldson and Hicks situations for the Yankees, where it's like they just don't really fit with the team anymore. It doesn't really they're just not pulling their weight anymore. They just don't fit with the clubhouse, whatever the case may be. It sucks to see, but again, it happens to every baseball player at some point, and it just so happens that this is now the time for Abreu. But yeah, they definitely have to move in a different direction if they want to, make a run here in the AL West, because it is not looking so hot for Jose Abreu and the Astros at this point. But finally, let's end today's episode by going around Major League Baseball and talking about some surprise players. There have been a lot of noteworthy starts across baseball so far. Some have been great starts and some have been less than that. So we are going to give you one player each that we have been pleasantly surprised by so far with their start, and one player who we have been unpleasantly surprised by their start so far. So Taylor, we're going to start with the bad, man. Tell me a player who you have not been surprised, or you have been disappointed by their start so far.
It pains me to talk about my boy Corbin Carroll in this light, but he is off to a real bad start. He started off hitting in the 2-hole most of the year for the Diamondbacks, but they just sat him this week against a lefty and Steven Matz, who's not, like a dominant lefty, so that's not a good sign. And then I think the next day he was hitting 7th against a righty, so that kind of tells you all you need to know about how his season's going so far. His strikeout and walk rates are both still very good. He's still showing good plate discipline, but he's in the bottom 2% of exit velocity and the bottom 4% of hard hit rate. And if you take a look at zone charts or heat maps, it's pretty clear that he has a massive hole in his swing up and in so far in the season, and that's exactly where pitchers are attacking him, and they are succeeding to a great degree attacking him there. And you can't help but think back to last season, that shoulder injury that slowed him down in the second half, and I think we all had kind of hoped maybe that was behind him, but maybe this is an indication that he's not quite healed from that yet, which is a huge bummer because he's one of the most electric players in the game when healthy. But even a struggling Corbin Carroll is still really valuable, just because if his speed is there, he's going to be valuable. He's got that range in the outfield. He's going to be able to beat out a lot of ground balls for base hits. He's going to be a nightmare on the base path. So even if for now he is kind of relegated to the lower part of the order, I think he is still valuable for them. But overall, this is the face of the Diamondbacks franchise for the foreseeable future. So I'm hoping they can find a way to manage his workload and get him healthy if that is what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Really disappointing to see Carroll start so far, Taylor, especially because I jumped on the bandwagon and picked him as my MVP to start off the year, and that is not looking good. Neither of my MVP picks are both my MVP picks are terrible so far. I picked Corbin Carroll and Julio Rodriguez, both of whom have been two of the most.
Cy Young pick is out.
Cy Young pick is out. It's all bad. So we're gonna try to keep pushing here. But maybe next year don't listen to my awards predictions. This second straight year they haven't gone well. But for me, as a former NL MVP, I'm going with Paul Goldschmidt. He's been a little bit better his last 5 games, going 6 for 19 with a couple multi-hit games mixed in, but he's been terrible. 200 average, 294 on base, 278 slugging for a 572 OPS. He's got just 3 extra base hits in 90 at-bats, 2 homers and a double. That is not Paul Goldschmidt at all. this is a guy who has literally never hit less than 55 combined homers and doubles in a full season. And right now he's on pace for 19. Okay. That is very, very worrisome. And it's because he isn't hitting the ball hard right now. Last year, he had a 50.8 hard hit percentage. That was the best of his career, 93rd percentile in baseball. Now it's all the way down to 36th percentile this year. So, and again, that's surprising because over the offseason, we heard all the reports that he went to Driveline to improve his bat speed, which, definitely can be a benefit. But sometimes, if you're trying to improve bat speed, it can tweak some of your mechanics as a hitter. And for someone like Goldschmidt, who's really unique and has a very defined style of hitting, I think that might have thrown some stuff out of whack for him and could have actually hurt his bat speed in the end. And also, he went from a consistent Gold Glover. Last year, he was 82nd percentile in outs above average. This year, he's 15th percentile in outs above average. So he's been a really bad defender so far this year, too. So for a Cardinals team that had really big expectations and is off to another slow start this year, that's the last thing you wanted to see. Your superstar, the man who won the NL MVP 2 years ago, playing awful to start the year. And right now, he's the 11th worst player in baseball, according to F4. That is not Paul Goldschmidt at all. And they are going to need Goldie to turn it around, or else the Cards could be in for another turbulent season in the NL Central, Taylor.
That's a good point about the bat speed, and as you were mentioning that, I pulled up his batted ball profile, and he is pulling the ball at a 39% rate this year, which is the highest of his career. I mean, since 2016, where he had a 38.2 percent pull rate, and last season, 31.5% pull rate. So might seem like maybe his hands are just a fraction too quick for the rest of his body right now, and maybe that timing just isn't quite there yet. Because not a lot of hard contact coming from him right now. I didn't quite even realize how bad he's been, and also the strikeout rate's really high. Yeah, the whole Cardinals just continue to just be a weird team.
Jordan Walker getting sent down. I saw a lineup the other day. Goldschmidt was hitting fifth. Again, that's good for most MLB players, but you think of Paul Goldschmidt, you're like, that's a 2-3-4 hitter every single time, and they bumped him down to fifth. So that shows even the Cardinals are, and Oli Marmol is a little bit concerned, like what's going on with Goldie, So it's definitely a concerning start for Paul Goldschmidt so far. I am definitely unpleasantly surprised by his start. I had really high hopes for him this year, and he has not performed very well. But again, I think if there's anybody who you can, kind of pencil in to at least bounce back and be a league average player, finishing the season, it's Paul Goldschmidt. He's proved too much over his career. So I'm not counting Paul Goldschmidt out. He just has not been good to start off this season. But we're gonna move to people who have been good to start off this season, Taylor. So I want to kick it to you, man. Give me someone you've been pleasantly surprised by so far in this MLB season.
I'm going to go with Mr. Irrelevant, Jurickson Profar, because by F4 last year, he was the worst player in Major League Baseball. But this year, he's already accrued. Yeah, it was bad. So this year, he's already accrued almost a full win above replacement by F4 in 28 games. He's been hitting fourth or fifth for the Padres, and he's put up a 872 OPS, 151 WRC plus, not playing bad defense. Dramatically better versus righties this year. 68 WRC plus versus righties last year, and so far this season, 157 WRC plus. So maybe part of this is just a hot start, but it also just seems like he might not have been comfortable playing for the Rockies at all last year, because as soon as he went to San Diego, his numbers all of a sudden got a whole lot better, even though, Coors is obviously a way better hitting park than Petco. Right. So my big takeaway here is that I think Profar is just a vibes guy. He also struggled in Oakland, which has notoriously bad vibes, struggled in Colorado, but he seems to be doing well in San Diego. So that's my really in-depth Jurickson Profar analysis. Is I think he's a vibes guy, and I think the vibes are good for him right now.
The vibes are great, and I absolutely, the moment he hit the go-ahead double after Will Smith called him irrelevant was like one of the best moments of the season so far, because it's like you have to know that's coming if you're Will Smith. If you say something like that, it's going to come back to bite you in the ass, and it came back to bite you in the ass. So good for Jurickson Profar for making him look like an idiot, because a guy who's been in the league for 10 years getting called irrelevant is ridiculous on its face. So really, really dumb on Will Smith's part. But for me, I'm going to go to a guy who has been performing really well, and it hasn't surprised me one bit, but I just want to give him a shout out because he's still being underrated even after his 20-game playoff hit streak, most of which was for the D-backs last year on their World Series run. Ketel Marte has been carrying the D-backs offense this year. He's at 320 for his average, 373 on base, 544 slugging, and a 921 on base percentage, or 921 OPS, excuse me. And he's got 2.1 B-WAR, which is the second most in all of baseball, only behind Mookie Betts. And a lot of that is because he is number one in baseball this year in defensive runs saved with 7. He's also 13th in outs above average, and he's 11th in F-WAR. So he is off to a monster start. He's also had a bunch of huge hits to help the D-backs get wins this year already, just like he had in the playoffs last year, including that walk-off last year he had in the playoffs in Game 3 in the NLCS versus Philadelphia. He's a guy who I was arguing in the comments for as a top 5 second baseman before the season started. People really didn't think he was a top 5 second baseman. It blew my mind.
He is.
Yeah, they're absolutely wrong. He is 100% in the top 5. He's probably in the top 3. So those people were crazy who didn't think that. I'm not really surprised by what he's doing this year. Just I think he needs more spotlight because he is an unbelievable player, just extremely underrated as well. So I want to give Ketel Marte my shout out because he is absolutely carrying the D-backs right now.
I love it. He's one of my favorite players in the league. I think a lot of people also still don't realize like how good he is. They're like, oh, this is a good second baseman. It's like, no, this guy's a really, really good second baseman. And he's been consistently one of the best second basemen for the last 5 years. And this Arizona team, I think, would be, they're also off to a bit of a slow start, but I think they would be much worse off if he wasn't a big factor in the top of that lineup right now.
100%. Yeah, he's kind of offsetting the Corbin Carroll slow start that you talked about. So we kind of had a good balance there of positive D-backs and negative D-backs. And I was look at me being the positive guy. I'm just a positive guy.
You got one positive thing in today.
I got literally one positive thing in today. I was all negative with Astros and with Goldschmidt, and then I got one positive thing in. So yeah, look at me being Mr. Rogers over here. But listen, there's a lot of awesome things going on in the MLB right now. There's so much to cover, and we're going to be here to cover it for you every step of the way. But that is going to do it for us today for the Bush League Bros. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. We would greatly appreciate it. Also, comment down below what you think about the Astros. Are they done? Do they still have a chance? Do you still think they can make the playoffs? What is going on with the Astros? I am very much so looking forward to seeing you Astros fans down there in the comments. I will meet you there, and I will be going at you head on in the comments. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well, at Bush League Bros. Also, follow at The House Call Sports on all platforms as well. If you like content from all sports, that is the place to go, and that is going to be it for us. Peace.
I want you to name one thing that you think Ben Verlander is better at than Justin.
We might be here a while.
Maybe better at like making a LinkedIn profile.
Oh, he's got better hair. Ben Verlander's got better hair than Justin.
I'm thinking like more like something they do.
Oh, then nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I've landed on. Maybe the Wordle. Yeah. Maybe he's better at like doing the Wordle.